And stay a while. It is Miller on Sports and the Miller on Sports podcast. I'm your host, Richard Miller, for the second edition, show number 2, and we'll try to have one at least once a week, and then increase it over the next coming weeks, hopefully. Throw in some guests, throw in various audio segments, and maybe even extend it. But my goal all along was to have it in the 20 to 30 minute range. So if you're driving around Jacksonville, Florida, you can listen to it pretty much just on a drive. I think average commute is like 22, 25 minutes. So listen to the entire show, plug us in, no headphones. I'm pretty sure that's against the law, but just plug us in or speakerphone us for the YouTube channel Miller on Sports. Also Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That might be where I'm my funniest, or at least I assume I am. milleronsports.com is a blog as well. For any local stories, milleronsports.com. Always presented by Snyder Air Conditioning, 641-0600 for any of your air conditioning or heating needs. We have that most recent cold snap, and it is still chilly. I'm bundled up. I'm wearing clothes I haven't seen in 8 months, 9 months. I don't even know. So call them if you need to get warmer. SnyderAC.com is a website and Facebook, but 641-0600 for Snyder Air Conditioning. We'll touch on a few things today and probably go almost 30 minutes this afternoon. And again, thank you for joining us. But we'll touch on best teams in college football right now. We've got the playoffs. It'll be here before you know it. It's Tuesday right now, Tuesday, November 18th. So we'll have once again the college football playoff rankings coming out. And who's 1, who's 2, who's 3, let the debate begin. Also, talk a little bit about my South Carolina trip to Columbia, seeing a number of their sports venues and some stories about Columbia. I think you need to visit there when you get a chance. Maybe throw it like a 4-day weekend or something, if you can, with your spouse or significant other. And then, big thing, next Florida head football coach. Who's going to be? Will Muschamp no longer? He'll finish out the next 2 games. And who's next? We've heard names: Mike Gundy, Spurrier, Bob Stoops, a lot of names. So we'll touch on all of that a little bit later on. And then the biggest thing I want to bring up is the NFL. Right now, about 1 month left of the regular season, and we've seen some teams really kind of take that next level. And I'd say the 2 up there right now, you look at Arizona, I don't really count them, even though they've done so well. I love Bruce Arians. I mean, what a hire that was. But you also look at Carson Palmer. You take away that advantage, Drew Stanton. I can't lean towards them right now. Still plenty of football to play, but just it's tough for me to do that. The Broncos with a tough weekend against St. Louis. But those 2 teams right now that are looking outstanding, New England Patriots and the Green Bay Packers. New England, just in prime time on Sunday night, Indianapolis, you get embarrassed. They run all over you with Jonas Gray. And then Tom Brady. I mean, there was that, 2-week period, maybe 3, where even I question are the Patriots done? What's wrong with Brady? What's going on here? This is going to be a rough year. But it also signifies how key Rob Gronkowski is. And along with J.J. Watt, one of the most impactful NFL players right now, that Gronkowski can do everything. He's going to smash you in the mouth. He's going to throw you a stiff arm, kind of, physically impose his will upon you until the whistle blows and he's 2-3 yards out of bounds, and then go back to the huddle, just kind of dancing, smiling on the sidelines, enjoying himself. Because I think that's why we all are involved in sports in one way or another, or talk about it, or go to games, season ticket holders. We enjoy it. It's a break from everyday regular life. But Gronkowski, he is fun to watch. And for the one fantasy team I do have, he is on my team. So I am ecstatic, and I'm glad I have him, and that is that. But the Patriots right now, no surprise that they're the Super Bowl favorite at 7-2. I mean, they have looked really good when they're just crushing people left and right. But again, those first 3 weeks of the season, it was okay, something's missing, something's not right. What's happening here? And I really think even if they lose 1 or 2 games, which they can with their remaining schedule, they still, to me, would be a top 2, top 3 team. I just don't see them falling all that far. Most likely they'll have home field advantage probably throughout the playoffs, because I think at this point the AFC is probably a little bit better than the NFC, but still it's a toss-up at this point. But New England clearly the best team right now. And for the Green Bay Packers, I mean, that is a team that, like, I could watch Aaron Rodgers throw any kind of pass for an entire Sunday afternoon. He has to be, along with Brady and maybe a couple of others, just one of the most composed players out there. One of the most composed athletes in sports, where he is, dropping back, 3-step, 5-step drop, and he's just chill. It's like he's hanging out at the beach with Olivia Munn in the Bahamas. He's just, all right, just another day. I've got this. Again, Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy team. I'm still confused as to why I'm a 500 fantasy team, but whatever. Such is life. And I think as well for Green Bay, Mike McCarthy probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. When all these lists of like top 5 or most coveted coaches in the National Football League come up, Mike McCarthy is not really on that list. And maybe it's because he's not that bubbly personality. Maybe he's not somebody that shines on camera. But I really like him. I think he's such an excellent fit for Green Bay. But if it could finish right now, and I don't want it to, just as a precursor, I don't want it to, but if we could have an Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patriots, Packers matchup in the Super Bowl, I would put down $50 to see that right now. I would be over the moon to see that matchup. Because I think after those two teams, it's kind of a drop-off. You look at the Packers, the last couple weeks, they put up 50 points. I did not think they would be at this part of the season playing like this 4 weeks ago when they played New Orleans. And I think that was a Sunday primetime game where it was like a 20-point blowout. And I want to say by like 4 minutes left in the third quarter, it was pretty much over. It was not even worth watching. But we've seen it time and time again. There's teams that sneak in. Maybe there's going to be a squad in the NFC South that makes a push. Not sure, but it could happen. But there are teams that can make that run. But for Saturday and Sunday, I thought that might have been the most entertaining football weekend this season. Whereof almost every game I watched, the Ohio State game at noon, Denver, St. Louis, and everything in between, even Tennessee-Pittsburgh last night, everything was of a very high entertainment value. And I'm sure much of that crushed The Walking Dead for Sunday night. Just an assumption. We'll talk many things on this Tuesday. Miller on Sports podcast number 2. Yeah, already number 2. NFL in the books. I'll talk a little bit about South Carolina, Florida, their next head football coach, best teams in college football, Twitter, Facebook, our YouTube channel, Instagram, Miller on Sports. Keep on listening. We enjoy it. I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. Keep up with us, and milleronsports.com is the website and blog, always presented by Snyder Air Conditioning at the southeast corner of Beach and Hodges Boulevard. Their number is 641-0600, 641-0600. With the most recent cold snap, you got to stay warm. Keep that family warm, your wife, your husband warm. SnyderAC.com is their website, and you can like them on Facebook for Snyder Air Conditioning. We'll come on back. We'll touch on South Carolina and the next head football coach at Florida. Probably won't know who it is until maybe 3, possibly 4 weeks down the road, but fully wants somebody by Christmas. So we'll come on back with that. Part 1 in the books. We'll have 3 sections and go for about 30 minutes on this Tuesday. It is the Miller on Sports podcast. We continue Miller on Sports on the Miller on Sports podcast. Thanks again for joining us. It is week number 2 believe it or not. And we'll try and keep it, again, with the travel with UNF basketball. I'll hopefully have one at least once a week. And then as we kind of settle in, maybe around the holidays or after, get it twice a week. Just as the schedule slows down, because the first 15 games we're on the road for 12 of those. But I must say it was fun. First road game of the season. Unfortunately, a loss to South Carolina. But Columbia, just a beautiful city, nice campus where the Gamecocks play, and lovely arena at Colonial Life. Their baseball stadium, Carolina Stadium, is outstanding. It's a beauty. It's got to be one of the 5 best stadiums for college baseball in the country. I mean, you drive by, and I didn't get a chance to go in, but it has everything. And it's still, I want to say, like 8 or 9 years old. It's still a fairly young stadium. So that was fun. Drove by, just took like a little driving tour for maybe an hour or so with a good friend of mine. Checked out Williams-Brice Stadium, and goodness, that tailgating setup. They've got places that you can rent out, just anything you can imagine. And you can tell once you're up on it, you're on George Rogers Boulevard. But once you're like a block or two away, it's a sight to behold. And clearly a top 20, top 25 seating-wise stadium, but it's just gorgeous. So I'm definitely making a trip back to Columbia, South Carolina here sometime soon. It has so much, and it reminds me a lot of like the Riverside, 5 Points area of Jacksonville, and so many of their buildings, so many of the structures in that town are red brick, and it was fun. Had a good time. It's always interesting to travel with the team, see how coaches do it their own way, and I can't wait for much of the same. But we'll be away beginning tomorrow, I guess today, depending on when the podcast we get posted. But I'll be gone for about a week and a half. But we'll keep the podcast going right after Thanksgiving. I'll have something, who knows? The sports world is ever changing, and stories are always coming out. I did find it interesting, though. I sat down at a bar in South Carolina, and kind of in what they call their 5 Points area, just maybe a street or two away. And the bartender that we had, we were kind of joking and everything. And, Stephen Garcia, former South Carolina quarterback, he has the stories of going to parties. And, he's a lover of beer, like many people are. But the bartender told a story of how he'd go to, Thursday night, college night or whatever. And Stephen Garcia was always known as having a pitcher of beer that for much of the night he would just rest on his belly. And there are a few other stories, but I thought that one was kind of entertaining. But if you haven't been, Columbia, South Carolina, a very cool place, and I'm definitely going to go back there again sometime soon. It is Miller on Sports. Again, find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube channel. Hopefully you found it already for Miller on Sports. A big story in the last week or so, and it's probably going to be a big story, or at least in the spotlight for maybe the next month. At least 3 weeks, I'd say, is the Florida head coaching job. Who's going to be the next Gator head coach? Will Muschamp will finish out the next 2 games, won't coach the bowl game, which I find a little weird. That's his decision, but, it's whatever. I think for Florida, they've got to cast out a wide net. I'm not of the opinion that you need an offensive guru, but yeah, it'd absolutely be nice. Probably somebody that's been a quarterback at the college level. Somebody that has numerous head coaching stops already, but just understands the offensive side of the ball. Because for the Gators, that was clearly an issue under Muschamp. Bringing in offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator and just did not click. Of course, you have to have the players, and nowadays you have to have the quarterback. We've seen that with Sims at Alabama, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. All around revolves around the quarterback and just talented teams. But Florida can get that. There's no doubt that they can get anybody. Already the names that are popping up, and I think it's going to be a list now for the next month. It's in that 20 to 25 names, and maybe every half a week, every other day or something, a coach comes out and says, you know what, I don't want that spot. I'm looking elsewhere. No, thank you. Do appreciate it. Bob Stoops, he's out of the running. Mike Shanahan, that came out on Monday Night Football, no go. He's currently unemployed. But names popping up like Hugh Freeze, Dan Mullen, Gary Patterson, Steve Spurrier for some odd reason, Kerwin Bell, no thank you. Rich Rod, not so much. But it's going to be just about everybody. Chip Kelly, you hear. I'd be okay with the Hugh Freeze just because we've seen his recent recruiting. Although he is an Oxford boy, he is somebody from Mississippi. And I believe his resume, he's only had 3 head coaching gigs. And he's kind of that Gus Malzahn pattern of, high school immediately, offensive coordinator, work his way up. And, sooner or later you realize, hey, he's got a decent job in the SEC, and he's got a pretty solid team. Dan Mullen, no, not so much. A couple of names that I've thought about recently, because it's gonna be a long list. There's no doubt about that. And Florida can get anybody. It's just a matter of making an offer, throwing out that net, and seeing what hits. But so much of it is gonna be, you've got to please the Gator boosters. You've got to please the Bull Gators. Just talking to a few of them and hearing various stories, and it's clear you don't even need to talk to them to realize they weren't happy. Okay, 2014 was quite upsetting. It was rough. So you've got to please them. That's got to be understood by Jeremy Foley, whether it's the current president or the new guy coming in, that you've got to please that group. They write you millions and $1 checks over and over again. They've got to be happy. And that's kind of always been the case. Arizona State's Todd Graham. That's a name that's kind of popped up a little bit. He's still fairly young. Offensively, he's done a number of things. He's got a top 10 team right now. You've also got, offensive coordinator with Clemson, Chad Morris. He's dealt with a number of injuries, and it seems like, every now and again the quarterbacks at Clemson go through these injuries. But I'd say look at Chad Morris. He was a hot name probably 18 months, 2 years ago, of trying to find a job. But I think for a lot of these guys too, and it makes sense, like any position, you want to find that gig that's right for you. You don't want to take any position, move your family, get up and leave with something that for the most part could be quite enjoyable. You've got your comfort zone, you've got your schedule. So for Chad Morris or maybe Todd Graham, it's got to be the perfect fit. But also if those dollar signs are right, why not? And then also Colorado State's Jim McElwain, that's a name that's popped up in quite a number of lists. Along with like Mike Gundy and Hugh Freeze, Dan Mullen, Gary Patterson, I'd say Jim McElwain is like in that top 5 grouping of names. Mike Gundy's the favorite right now according to Las Vegas. But you look at this Colorado State head coach. He's increased his win totals over the last 3 seasons. He's got 9 wins on the year right now. He comes from the Nick Saban coaching tree, former offensive coordinator for Alabama. Spent 1 year under Art Shell with the Raiders as their quarterbacks coach. So he has a year of that NFL experience. But it's going to, like I said, again, it's going to be a checking off of, okay, we had this guy, all right, publicly, he's saying, no, I'm focused on this gig. And I'm ready for Florida to find somebody. Wasn't it nice on Saturday night? And you just felt it with Florida State, Miami. But I want those kind of games in the state of Florida. I want Florida State, Miami. I want a little bit of Florida, Miami. I want Florida State and Florida. I want those games to be great. I want them to be 32-29. I want them to be 42-38. I want them to be close, exciting. Hundreds of recruits, or at least dozens of recruits at the Swamp or at Doak Campbell Stadium deciding between those two squads. And so much is on the line, and it's been a tough road. It's felt like forever of just already be done with it with Will Muschamp. Okay, he's a nice guy. He's a great person. But that can only take you so far. And Muschamp addressed that yesterday. But he had kind words from both Foley and Machen. But, hey, you gotta cut the umbilical at some point and just be done with it. But my 3 favorites right now, I'd say Chad Morris at Clemson, Arizona State's Todd Graham, Jim McElwain, definitely up there, Colorado State head coach. And I'm sure over the next coming weeks, Foley did say he wants a coach by Christmas, so sometime around there. But we'll hear plenty of names popping up. but Florida can get anyone. They've got the money to do it, the facilities, and it sounds like more and more they might upgrade some stuff here in the next coming seasons. It is Miller on Sports coming back. We'll touch on a number of things as well. Best teams in college football. I've thought about this for a while, and we've discussed it previously on the show on 1010XL, but we'll delve into that, have some more fun. Come on back. It is Miller on Sports. Find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that, Miller on Sports. Back again to wrap up the show for a Tuesday edition. And again, we'll try and do these, I'm hoping most, if not all Tuesdays, and then throw in another day throughout the week. But as we get just kind of acclimated with the software, throw in some guests going forward, some music beds, various segments, and just see how everybody responds. And I know it takes a while, especially since the Tuesday show is no longer on 1010XL, but now I've taken over full duties of voice of the Ospreys, so any events they have, also basketball and traveling with them is fun, but it's a time commitment, and then also baseball as that rolls along, probably start doing some games, let's see, like end of March, so you can check all that out on 1010XL, the Osprey radio network. Fun win last night over Weber International. UNF has some talent. I'd say definitely watch out for them come tournament time. And I would say that if I was not a part of the team, if I was not saying we, but keep up with them, and good things could happen in 2014, 2015 for this Ospreys squad. And I've covered them now for 2-3 seasons. And I've been friends with Matthew Driscoll, but this is the most talented team they have right now. Well, also, I want to come up with like a theme song or the intro song. I've been listening to a number of podcasts that have some good ones. So we'll try and find that maybe in the next month or so. If you know anybody, or maybe if you're good at that kind of thing, reach out to us, milleronsports@gmail.com. One of my favorite parts about Tuesday now has just been the rankings. Seeing the college football playoff rankings, getting the top teams and everything, the four, one's going to play 4, 2, and 3, who's it going to be, and all of that, and just the discussion, the people being upset, and all of the emotions that come with it. Now, granted, that's just college football, okay? But Tuesdays have been quite delightful. I've really enjoyed them at whatever it is, 7:30 on ESPN when those ratings come out. And then just college football this season. We've had now probably 2 or 3 weekends that have just been, honey, I can't leave this couch because it's just been too fun to watch. I can't, you've got to stay glued in from game day, or maybe you're an SEC Network fan and you like their pregame show, but from 10, 11 a.m. until that noon kick, a 3:30 game, a 7:15 kickoff, and then maybe the prime time game. Oh, it's been quite fun. Just looking at everything right now, I've kind of held true to this for the most part. Oregon, I haven't been able to watch them so much in these last 3 or 4 weeks, but I've just had this feeling, and I think a lot of folks have felt the same way, that Alabama, Florida State, and Oregon, those are the best squads right now. And so we've had these outstanding college football Saturdays. I don't think this one's going to be all that fantastic, but that debate of Alabama, Florida State, that conversation of national championship game of Alabama with a top 2 defense, and then Oregon, a top 3 scoring offense. How fun would that be to see those two teams? We saw in Oregon, Auburn a few years ago, but maybe in Alabama, Oregon. I'm still of the mindset, though, that no matter how long we go along, and just 2 more regular season games and conference championship games, and then we'll get to the playoffs and postseason, but FSU still has Boston College in Florida, so you'll get to see a Tyler Murphy sighting this weekend. And then for Florida State, though, so much has been brought up, and I personally love it. I love going into halftime and saying, okay, Florida State is down, the Noles have to claw back, and they better get it to overtime or something. They need a good drive. And there have been those 6 close games or an overtime and or coming from behind. But gosh, when your win streak is 26 games, I'm sorry. I've got to give it up to the Seminoles. This is the best team right now, in my opinion. Even when they're down to Miami going into the second half, they have Jameis Winston. Whatever your opinion might be of him personally, just try and take that out of the picture, because when it comes down to the last 2 quarters of football, it's just almost a guarantee now of, oh, what are we going to see? I mean, what kind of highlight reel is going to be put together? And whether they play an Oregon or an Alabama or somebody else in the Final Four, gosh, they have played some outstanding football. I can't remember the last time, or if ever, we've seen a team do this. You know, granted, right now they haven't beaten any top 25 teams as the standings are right now, but they've beaten 3 when they played them in the top 25. But 26 straight wins, and that to me is just outstanding. I mean, truly spectacular. But Alabama, for as much as that loss to Ole Miss was exciting for the Rebels, and seeing those uprights go throughout the city and go through everything, and seeing folks saw them down after Alabama fell to Ole Miss, Crimson Tide has looked very good. You know, they clearly have the talent. They've got Nick Saban. They have a quarterback in Sims. They have an outstanding running game. And they've beaten Mississippi State this past weekend, which was just thrilling to watch. Again, one of those games where, honey, I can't leave. I went to the gym and just burned off some energy and watched that game and had a great time, especially when the gym has nobody in it. I mean, I love it when it's a Saturday when it's nonstop football, and a Sunday at about 1 where the gym is just empty. Makes sense. Same thing with the grocery store. But for Alabama, LSU win in overtime. They came from behind. Again, one of those games where you're like, no, it's not. No, Jay, are you kidding? Oh, here we are. All right. I love it. But I think those are the 2 best teams right now. You could say 1A and 1B. I think Florida State is better. I give them so much respect for 26 straight wins. I mean, they're going into the record books as one of these outstanding, are you kidding me, incredible football teams. And you got to give a lot of that to Jameis Winston. It's been fun. And they've got a good running game, too. They've got Cook. And I love the Florida folks saying, gosh, you committed to us a while ago. Give them that Gator chomp. Then you look at Oregon. You know, it's unfortunate because maybe I wear myself out so early on in the day. And when it comes to like 9:30, 10 o'clock, I'm kind of winding down at that point. And I almost always tune into Oregon. You know, saw that loss they had against Arizona on a Thursday night. But I felt like a lot of that was Mariota not getting strong offensive line protection. But for the Ducks, this is a team that constantly is putting up 42 points a game, going over 50 points a game. You know, they almost look like, if you just look at the box score and the scoreboard, you say, okay, that's like an Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers team of the last 2 weeks. Goodness. Wow. Okay. But Oregon, they've beaten Michigan State, which was a fun, entertaining, I believe that was a primetime game. UCLA, they came off a victory over Utah this past weekend. So they've beaten 3 top 25 teams. And I believe I was on a radio show last January. We were just talking about the playoffs and who's your Final Four right now as it stands, looking ahead, whatever it was, 11 and a half, 12 months. And I think I said Florida State, Alabama. I might have said Oregon. I threw in Auburn, and like UCLA was kind of in there. I think I debated Oregon or UCLA. The Bruins, not so much. But for a good bit, I mean, Florida State, Alabama, they're kind of in that. But there's so many teams in the running. If you've seen the craziness of college football in these last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and that's just by definition, college football is just crazy, insane. Lock it up right now. We could have much of the same in the next 3-4 weeks, and things could change. But Tuesday nights, I love it because Tuesday, sit down, have dinner, you get the ratings of the college football playoffs and see who's moving and shaking. And then all the discussion on social media and at the water cooler. It is Miller on Sports, second edition. Glad you can join us on this second week, and we'll do this every week. I'll take about a week and a half off just being with the UNF basketball team. Come on back, maybe do something the day after Thanksgiving or that weekend with a number of rivalry games, Florida State, touch on more Jacksonville Jaguars and what they have ahead with just about a month or so left in the regular season. So plenty of fun. We're on Facebook, Miller on Sports, Twitter, Instagram, always presented by Snyder Air Conditioning. 641-0600 is our number at the southeast corner of Beach and Hodges Boulevard. Beach and Hodges Boulevard. With the most recent cold snap, I mean, you need strong heat. You want to stay warm. You know, when it's hot outside, I want to be frigid. When it's cold outside, I want to be bundled up and warm. SnyderAC.com. You can find them there for anything you need to know. Also like their Facebook page. But the number again for any AC or heating needs, 641-0600. You got to keep you and your family warm coming up wintertime, even though it doesn't feel like we have many cold days. But stay warm. Stay safe with all the storms we had, the high winds and tornado warnings. Hope everybody is okay. But keep up with us on social media, website milleronsports.com. If you need anything from me or if you want to chime in and we can have a discussion, stuff like that, milleronsports@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week for the Miller on Sports podcast.